Opponents of Seattle's sugary drink tax are saying enough. Now they want voters to stop any new local taxes on food or drinks statewide.
This is an industry scare tactic.
Food and drink are the lifeline of people.
Initiative 1634 is a preemptive strike against cities considering a tax on raw ingredients like the sugar and soda drinks or processed foods like frozen meals and granola bars.
This is about jobs.
Both sides weigh in.
This is about choice.
Public health and your pocketbook. Next on City Inside Out. Welcome to this edition of City Inside Out. I'm your host, Brian Callanan. Initiative 1634. Is it a way to prevent new grocery taxes or a political power play from big soda corporations? It's called the Keep Groceries Affordable Act, and with more than 380,000 signatures, it's on your November ballot. Passing 1634 would not reverse Seattle's sugary beverage tax that's been in place since January, but would freeze it from future increases. This measure is aimed at other cities. Opponents say I-1634, backed by Big Soda, misleads voters and promotes a serious health hazard. But supporters say they have a broad coalition who want to stop any new taxes before they start.
Ooh-wee.
Tess Thomas runs her business with a hot oven.
That is brisket.
And a warm heart.
I eat, sleep, and live and breathe this restaurant every day.
Her restaurant, Emma's Barbecue on Rainier Avenue South, is named after her mom. And Tess says serving up her family recipes provides a basic need for her community.
Food and drink are the lifeline of people.
We need to eat to survive.
That's part of the rallying cry for Initiative 1634, a measure Tess and others support to stop new local taxes on food and beverages.
Once they reach into our grocery cart, where does it end?
The measure launched soon after Seattle's sweetened beverage tax on distributors kicked in at the start of the year, 1.75 cents per fluid ounce. Soda and other non-alcoholic sugary drinks in Seattle face the tax, and the money brought in, more than $10 million in the first 6 months of this year, will go towards health and early education programs.
What people are going to do, they're going to do. If I want a soda, I'm going to get myself a soda.
Tess is doubtful the public health effort is working. Customers are still buying sodas at her place, just with a 50-cent price increase, since she now has to drive out of town to get them.
It just makes people have to pay more.
Passing 1634 would freeze, but not reverse Seattle's sugary beverage tax, and would stop other cities from passing similar taxes on drinks or food.
It hurts those that are the middle income and most definitely the poor. If I go buy a 50-pound bag of sugar, is that going to be the next taxable thing? I think it's important at this point that there's a line drawn that says there's no more.
I get inspired by the patients that I've seen.
Dr. Jim Krieger puts a lot of heart into his work too. More specifically, stories of the hearts he's examined during 25 years of practicing medicine in Seattle.
I saw the ravages of diabetes and heart disease and obesity in my patients.
His research showed a common link was large amounts of sugary drinks.
And that just got my attention. I said, wow, is this the new tobacco?
Krieger, who helped draft Seattle's sugary drink tax measure, points out that virtually all of the Yes campaign's funding, $8 million as of early September, comes from out-of-state big soda corporations like Coca-Cola, PepsiCo, and the Dr. Pepper Snapple Group.
We're just afraid that this would open up the door for more corporate interference with local decision-making about what people think is best for their communities.
He says it's too early to tell what impact Seattle's sugary drink tax is having on local businesses and consumers, though there is a study underway.
Here you go, ma'am.
But, Krieger says, research from Berkeley, California, and the country of Mexico, which have had sugary drink taxes since 2014, shows people are consuming fewer sugary beverages without causing significant economic trouble.
There's been no negative effect on jobs, employment, or revenues in the food retail sector.
And as for the idea that 1634 is a way to prevent cities from taxing all groceries, including food products, Krieger says that's a ploy from Big Soda to protect profits.
I have not heard anybody talking about taxing other sugary products, let alone dairy and meat and juice, which is what the proponents of this ballot measure say. There's been zero discussion of that. That is absolute disinformation and fake news.
While the economic support for 1634 comes from a few big companies, there's a broad coalition of labor, farming, and ethnic business groups providing political support for this measure. The support for the No campaign? A mere $250 as of early September.
Oh, yeah.
Tess Thomas says she supports 1634 as a way to push back against the possibility of new taxes.
Leave food and drink alone.
But Dr. Jim Krieger says 1634 is merely a scare tactic from large corporations, now pouring millions of dollars into what he calls a fight of biblical proportions.
I think it's going to be David versus Goliath, with Big Soda being Goliath.
And joining us for a further discussion on this issue, we have with us Dr. Ann Bauman. She is a member of the National Board of the American Heart Association. Good to have you with us, Doctor.
Thank you. Good to be here.
Also with us is Pete Lamb. He is the Senior Business Agent of Teamsters Local 174. Pete, good to have you too.
Thank you.
All right. Had a coin flip before the show, and Pete, you'll be speaking first here. Why do you support this measure?
So, again, thank you for having us here. As a leader in our region, as a labor leader in our region for the past 20 years in the Teamsters, I've seen the fight for working families, and I see every day how taxes and policies impact working people and communities of color. We live in a state where we have one of the most regressive tax structures in the country. And these taxes are taxes that hurt working families. They hurt communities of color. They hurt businesses of color. They hurt communities where I came from, in Pierce County. And, that's why we are so opposed, not to the fight in regards to fighting obesity and working in regards to addressing chronic health conditions. We have always been in support of that. But we are not in support of methods that impact working families the most, that impact communities of color and businesses of color the most. And that's why we support this measure. The other piece I would say is, with I-1634, this sends a clear and loud message that one, we're going to close the loophole, which was an example last year. We saw that in the city of Seattle. And it's about fundamental fairness and affordability. And, one thing that we believe is that working families shouldn't have to worry about the potential of rising costs on groceries. There should be certain things, such as food, that should be sacred and off the table. And that's why we support this.
We'll get into some of those issues in just a bit. Dr. Bowman, why do you oppose this measure?
We oppose this measure because this is not a grocery tax. This is a bill that will take away communities' abilities to make decisions for their community, for the health of their communities, to make the decision that they do or do not want to support sugar-sweetened beverage tax. Make no mistake, Big Soda is behind this to protect their profits. This is not about taxes for working people making it harder to live. If you want to talk about regressive, we will talk about the diseases that are very regressive, that hurt families, that really hit communities of color, really hit youth. This is what we're concerned about, and we want communities to be able to make their own decisions. This will take away the opportunity for community leaders to say, this is how we want to do. And as far as the grocery tax is concerned, we're already protected by state law for taxes on groceries like bread, milk, fruits and vegetables. That's a law already. This is not about a tax on your everyday groceries. This is about sugar-sweetened beverages.
Let's break down that first point if we can, Pete, and I'll direct it this way if I can, because I know a lot of opponents of this measure say you might be misleading the public here. So I-1634, as it's written, would ban any new local taxes on food or beverages. But, as the doctor brought up, our state already bans taxes on food and food ingredients. The State Department of Revenue last year did say certain drinks, sugary beverages, bottled water, they could be taxed, but that's it. There is no plan in our state to tax meat or dairy or any other groceries. How do you respond to that?
So what I would say, a couple of things here. Number one, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, there wasn't a plan to put a tax on beverages in the city of Seattle. This was something that we didn't know was coming, and it did come. And there was a loophole that was found that, if you tax the distributors, you could go around you could tax the distributors, and we've seen the impacts in regard to that. Let me be really clear about this. This does two things. Number one, if you go to the grocery store, basically every item that you put in that grocery cart is either produced, manufactured, picked, shipped, warehouse, distributed by a Teamster. Furthermore, you're checked out by another union member of the UFCW.
Yeah.
This is about jobs. This issue that happened in the city of Seattle is about jobs. It always has been about jobs. It hasn't been about health with us because we've supported, and actually, we actually went to you guys. You didn't come to us, but we went to you and had a meeting to try to talk about these concerns and try to talk about how we could partner. This does two things. It protects citizens by giving them, number one, the ability to vote on this, to make the decision for themselves. And I trust the citizens of the city of Seattle, and I trust the citizens of the state of Washington. Me being a lifelong Washingtonian, I believe in the initiative process. But this is about jobs. It has been about jobs. We've seen the example in Philadelphia where they've lost 1,200 jobs. I'm very close friends with the Secretary Treasurer in Philadelphia. We keep close ties on that, and that has impacted jobs. And that's why we want to do everything possible. One, to emphasize that we're more than willing to work with your side in regards to dealing with chronic health conditions, dealing with obesity, but doing it in a way that doesn't hurt working families and communities of color.
Dr. Bowman, I'm going to direct it your way, and I want to make sure I pick apart one piece to start with. You brought up a number of points there, but this whole idea of a slippery slope. We're taxing beverages, what's next, milk, dairy, meat, whatever else. Can you respond to that? Because I know there are some concerns about that.
No, absolutely. The American Heart Association goes where the research leads us. And the research leads to sugar-sweetened beverages as the largest contributor to sugar consumption in our country. And that leads, the study is clear, that leads to obesity. Food doesn't do that. Food has nutritional value. Food has benefit. So there is not a consideration to tax bread, milk, the foods that we use. And I'm not sure it was a real loophole in the Washington state law that was, quote, closed, that happened with Seattle, because we are able, taxes on things that are prepared, things that are put together, those are things that can be taxed, and that's what the sugar-sweetened beverages fall under. And I would like to comment on the jobs issue, if I may, because in Philadelphia, there's just a study that came out last week that showed that actually unemployment claims in the industries that are expected to be most impacted by the tax have actually gone down by 10% in Philadelphia and 8% in the surrounding communities. So we have to be careful about when we say that we're losing jobs in this. And in studies that were done, prospective studies looking at both Illinois and also California, they actually saw, the studies saw a modest increase in jobs, and actually that's happened in Berkeley, increases in jobs.
And we're going to break down that too. Pete, I want to bring this back your way and make sure we get to a point that I know a lot of people on the no side are talking about here with regard to big soda. The no side would say this measure is nothing but an out-of-state corporate attempt to take away local control, to tax ourselves, as Dr. Bowman was bringing up here. How do you respond to that piece, that big soda has this influence?
Absolutely not. I mean, from the very beginning, we have been a key stakeholder. We have been part of this campaign because we want to make sure that we are not dealing with this issue on a city-by-city level, that we are protecting our members' jobs, that our guys aren't being forced to this realization that, oh, there's a new tax here, it's going to impact your job and you're out of work, right?
A lot of dollars are coming from big soda. I wanted to make sure we got that across.
And you know, the thing about it is and with all due respect, I think it's kind of, from the no side, I think it's a hypocritical argument because and no fault in regards to the positions and medical, but in regards to the city-by-city challenges that have gone up all across the country, you've been funded by big money as well, by the pockets of a multi-billionaire. Now, I don't fault that. That's, it's pushing your agenda and it's pushing what you believe strongly in. I don't have a problem with that. But on our side, I believe, number one, it's very clear that we have stated from the very beginning that we're going to do whatever we can to fight for jobs. Number two, in regard to it, I think, again, I think it is a distraction in regards to the main issue. I think the other part, it shows the transparency of the industry of showing this is what we've put forward. And as a point of privilege, I've been doing this for 20 years. I have been involved in negotiations, and my job is to take money out of the pockets of big corporations and put that in the pockets of working families. And we do that every day, and I will make no apologies for that. And I think when we meet with our members monthly and talk about this issue, they clearly understand where the money is coming from. And if they're going to fund something that actually helps to protect our industries and our jobs, and we're okay with that.
I guess, Dr. Bowman, I want to make sure I come back on the other side of this, because I understand the argument with regard to big soda funding the yes side here, but I know as of early September, there's not a lot of money that's been raised for the opposition of this bill. You're going up against a very well-organized, well-funded campaign that has support from labor organizations. How do you fight against something like that?
I think we fight against it with the facts. And that's why I appreciate being here and to really be able to talk about. I have seen the commercials that say this is a tax on groceries and what's next. It is not a tax on groceries. It is a tax on sugar-sweetened beverages that is really the issue here. And when we talk about regressive, the diseases are regressive. I mean, I'm a primary care doctor. I have dealt with these diseases day after day for 35 years. I have seen what has happened in families, in communities. You want to talk about job loss? Let's talk about somebody having a stroke. Let's talk about diabetes and the expense of the medications. How many times do family members have to take off of work to bring their loved one? 70% of caregivers are family members. This is what we're talking about, and there is no doubt that sugar-sweetened beverages lead to these diseases. And this is about giving communities the choice to decide what is right for them. They have their leaders, they have their elected leaders. Let's let them decide. Let's let them decide how important, where their issues are, because I do have to tell you, working people, communities of color, these are being targeted and have been for years with marketing for sugar-sweetened beverages. And that's leading to really a disproportionate number of these diseases among the very people that work and are trying to make it, middle-class families. That's why this is important.
And Pete, I'm going to have you respond to that. I want to make sure I put in one point here, because I know with the Seattle measure here, a lot of that money that is coming in is going towards programs that are for health, that are for early education, things of that nature. People who oppose the measure would say, you're actually reinvesting in some of these communities of color, et cetera. And so with that, it almost makes sense. It's almost like a net gain for those communities when they get those investments. And I want to make sure you respond to that idea.
So a couple of things. This initiative is not about big soda. This initiative is very clearly laid out and clearly written. It's about groceries. It's about food. It's about food and beverages. Okay, so let me say that. And you're right. That's why we're not trying to take away the money that's already been budgeted in the city of Seattle. We would not do that, nor would we support that, right? But let's be really clear. This is being funded on the backs of working folks. It's being funded on the backs of communities of color. It's being funded on the backs of businesses of color. That is the reality. Statistics have shown that. The studies have shown that. We're not opposed to dealing with that. I would agree with you that there are tremendous health impacts that our families have probably seen, whether it's strokes or heart disease or diabetes. But you know what? This doesn't prevent you from dealing with those issues. What we're saying is we'll partner with you, but let's do it in a manner that doesn't put the burden on the working folks and communities of color. Let's fund it in ways. This is a progressive city with progressive ideas. Let's fund those progressive ideas and progressive agendas with progressive funding. Let's find things that don't impact communities of color, working families, and those that can least afford to pay it.
Yeah, I think we're getting back to this regressivity issue. What did you want to say?
Yes, I would like to comment on that, because, you know, what this does actually is it says that the state will make the decision about what is being done and where the money will go. And if you vote no for this, what you're saying is that communities, because big cities and small communities don't necessarily have the same needs. Their communities don't necessarily have the same needs. So if you allow them to continue to make their own decisions and decide where that money they collect goes, then they are going to be net winners on this, because different communities have different needs. And if you look at the data, when we hear that Big Soda says that, you know, the small stores lose business, actually that's not they're not taking into account, that's not true, because they're not taking into account if it's not spent on sugar sweetened beverages, it doesn't mean it just isn't spent, it's spent on other goods. And that's what we find in the communities.
I think there's a challenge here, though, and some people would call it almost a lose-lose situation. So walk with me here if you can. If the tax actually fails to curb sugary beverage intake, you know, here in the city of Seattle, then you got all of these tax dollars coming in, right? But then let's say people start consuming less, and so those programs that were getting the money from that, then those programs get starved. And so I worry about that, because I think some people are thinking about how long a tax like this could last and if it could go into the future.
Well, and I think that is a question that I brought up as well. But what happens is, if you see the benefits of where the taxes are going, then the communities, the city councils, et cetera, have the ability to say, okay, this is working well. We will continue to fund this because we can see the benefits of it. Okay. So ideally, yes, we will have less consumption. That is the goal. But keep in mind, when we also talk about costs, right, and we talk about these diseases are very costly,
right,
and we're all paying for it. The healthcare dollar, we are all paying for it. It is in the hundreds of billions of dollars that we spend on diabetes, heart disease, obesity.
Right.
That's what we end up saving.
Pete, I want to make sure I bring you in here, because I know you brought up the Philadelphia example, but places like Berkeley, country Mexico, they have some of these sugar taxes in place, and consumption has gone down, from what I have read, without a large impact on the economy from the research there. Why not let that happen here and let these cities decide on something like that?
So here's the issue. One, I think that it's, at the end of the day, it's going to be up to the citizens of the state of Washington. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I think that folks take this process seriously, and I think that there's nothing wrong with the 7 million citizens that we have throughout the state of Washington making that decision. At the end of the day, they're going to make that decision. But in regards to specifically talking about your question, again, our issue here is not about the health stance. I think we're going to have a lot of agreement. I think, quite frankly, I think we're going to agree on most of it. The issue is in the funding, and there's two problems with it. Number one, I've stated that it falls on the backs of working folks, the people that can least afford it. That is a fact. But number two, you're right. We have two things happening in this country in regards to beverages. Number one, sugary sweetened beverages are on the decline, have been on the decline for decades. And now we're going to put very important issues that we want to deal with in regards to early child education and health, but we're going to put it on a product. Number one, it's already on the decline, and then you have the whole purpose of trying to make it on the decline. Why don't we do this? Why don't we find ways of funding these very, very important programs that we can agree on in a way that is not only doesn't hurt working folks, but is also sustainable into the future. That is a very, very big problem that we're going to have to tackle going forward.
Dr. Bowman, you had a response.
Yes, because I think we are and we will continue to tackle those. We're doing that all the time. You brought up the difference in the funding, $250 versus millions.
Right.
That's because if you look at the groups who are supporting this, we're doctors, we're people who take care of children. We are not Big Soda and have those kind of dollars.
Unions and the Korean Grocers Union and people like that are involved too on that side.
But yes, I understand that. But they're not the big pockets when you bring up the dollar differences. All right, and so this is about health. This is about health, but the bill is about choice. All right, and so I have a hard time understanding why leaving it to the communities to make their own decision about what is right for them is not a win-win for everybody, because they will be able to do that, and everyone is suspicious of what happens at the state level in terms of when that money goes in there, it's sort of lost. But when you're in a smaller community or a community like Seattle, you know where it's going to go because you can designate that, and it's all about choice in the communities to help their people.
Thank you very much for that. Pete, we need to start wrapping up the show. I know you want to refute some of the points there. If you can do that within a minute's time, that would be great.
Sure, absolutely. So I just wanted to say this, is that not only am I somebody who has worked in regards to labor and social justice for 2 decades, I'm also somebody who grew up in poverty. I know what it means to live in a food desert because I grew up in one. I know what it means to grow up in poverty. I know what things like, I know how policies and I know how taxes impact a single mom like mine. Mm-hmm. And I know today, there's going to be a different situation for my kids, thankfully, right? But I want to say two things. Number one, we have over 1,300 folks that are part of our coalition. Mm-hmm. And no, they're not doctors. Yeah. But you know what? They live every day trying to put food on their table to try to make a living. And these are the Korean Grocers Association. We have the Machinists Union. We have a strong labor group that's supporting this. And at the end of the day, I believe that we can deal with these issues going forward. We can deal with these issues without putting them on the backs of working folks and people that can least afford it. And I think that we can work together on things that can create very meaningful changes that can serve the interests of both.
Dr. Bowman, I'll give you the last word here.
We know from tobacco taxes that people will change their behavior. We know that people won't drink as much sugar-sweetened beverages. It's not their food, it's the sugar-sweetened beverages if these taxes go into place. So we know this will help working families because they won't have the diseases that are causing all of these issues. This is about choice, having the choice in your own community to decide how best to handle the needs of your community. This is a way to get rid of health disparities, and it's not going to be a tax burden on the backs of the working people.
Okay, thank you both very much for your input here, and we will be right back.
It seems a little unfair to people who are low income.
I think each city needs to make that decision by itself.
I think a disincentive towards sugared beverages is a good thing.
I don't like having new taxes.
We'd like to know what you think. Send us an email at contact@seattlechannel.org or find us on Facebook and Twitter and give us your feedback. Before we close today, it's time for our weekly CIO poll. Do you plan to support a ban on local grocery taxes? Yes, no, or are you undecided? We want to know what you think. Cast your vote and send us your comments at our website, seattlechannel.org/cityinsideout. While you're there, you can watch our programs online anytime. Coming up next week, taxing carbon emissions. Initiative 1631 wants to help the environment by penalizing pollution. So why are 8 of the state's top 12 polluters exempt? We clear the air next time on City Inside Out. I hope you join us.